Hi guys, it's really good to see you again this year. I'm Vlad and I'm doing the Bitcoin Takeover magazine, which is an open source magazine project which I believe that is going to onboard the next 1 billion users with this edition. And I know that if you look at the price right now, you're going to assume compared to the previous all-time high that we are in a bear market, whatever that means. And during bear markets, we have all of these silly narratives that end up catching momentum and they get mainstream attention. And most of the times they're super silly. And as you're about to see here, over the years, in 2014 to 2017, during the bear market, it was about blockchain, not Bitcoin. It was about Bitcoin 2.0. That's when you started having silly ideas like Ethereum being presented. And that's when you had Tether on Bitcoin because they were saying, yeah, so we have this BTC token, it's super cool. But did you know that the Bitcoin network can do tokens? So how about we do that? And that's how they pushed for a new bull market because institutions saw some potential in that. Afterwards, during the 2018, 2019, 2020 bear market, the narrative changed a little. It became more about Bitcoin, and somehow they started shilling Bitcoin to institutions, and they thought that was the salvation for the price, but they ended up dumping on us, like Tesla. Don't get me started on that. And there was also the stock-to-flow model, which was silly because it assumed that since the supply is diminishing, the demand is going to remain constant, which means that the price is always going to go up. If you study a little bit of Austrian economics, you're going to stumble upon a concept that's called praxeology, and you're going to realize that it's praxeologically wrong to assume human action is going to stay constant, and demand for anything in this world cannot stay constant or grow over time. So stock-to-flow went bust. It was a bad idea. So now I have my own silly narrative, which actually makes more sense, because I believe that we're going to onboard the next 1 billion users among the people who already heard about Bitcoin, but their minds are filled with nothing but FUD. They know very vaguely what Bitcoin is. They know it's internet money. They know what it can do. But at the same time, they have these limitations about Bitcoin that were instilled in their brains by the mainstream media, by their governments, and all of these institutions that don't really want Bitcoin to succeed. So I created this magazine. It has a different cover in the open source version, which I'm going to publish. But for Pizza Day, they decided to personalize it and have their own custom cover. If you want, you can take one of the copies, which are right here in front of me, and you can take a look at it. But if you want to keep it for yourself, you're gonna have to pay next to the reception. I'm not sure exactly how much it is, but it's basically printed by Parallel Police, and all the proceedings are going to go to them to organize more events. Because it's an open source project, and I'm not making money directly on the sale. I'm only making money on putting some full-page advertisements. As you can see, this is Panties for Bitcoin. I guess they got more than they expected because I randomly opened to their ad. But at the end of every article, I put a full-page ad, and that's how I pay for my plane tickets, and that's how I pay for my work, basically. So what is this thing, this magazine? Why am I shilling it so hard? Well, basically, I try to be modern, right? I try to be contemporary. So I started using AI, and I asked ChatGPT, hey, what are the top 10 most serious threats to the Bitcoin project? And I think I got a very relevant reply, which covers regulation, competition from other cryptocurrencies, scalability, security vulnerabilities, price volatility, limited use cases, energy consumption, centralization of mining, lack of education and understanding, and lack of mainstream acceptance. And I took it as a challenge to tackle each one of these subjects in an article that takes less than 10 minutes to read. And my assumption is that if you take this and you put it in the hands of someone who says, for example, that Bitcoin is wasteful, they're going to read this article and understand that, okay, there is actually this report by the Cambridge University which keeps track of the Bitcoin network and how much energy it supposedly consumes. And so if you rank it, it consumes less electricity than televisions that are left idle around the world. Or, for example, refrigerators are very close to the amounts of energy that's being consumed by Bitcoin. And whenever you say that Bitcoin consumes too much energy, it's kind of a nihilistic argument which says this should not exist. There is no room for this in the world. And that's what bankers and governments usually say. And my thesis, and I only have 10 minutes to present it, so I have to be very brief. My thesis is that you need to get to the people who already heard about Bitcoin and help them explain that it's not as bad as they think it is. But since I still believe that there's some legitimate criticism about Bitcoin, I still have one last article on top of the 10 ones that break the FUD, and it's called FUD for Thought. And this one basically explains that, okay, there's an issue with, or not necessarily an issue, but an uncertainty with the security budget. We're not sure that as the mining rewards diminish by 50% every 210,000 blocks, which is approximately 4 years, we're not sure if the miners are gonna stay profitable and what happens when they're no longer profitable. And the other legitimate criticism about Bitcoin concerns privacy and the fact that still you can discriminate between UTXO-A and UTXO-B, which means that it's not really fungible, and that's the only quality of sound money that's still missing from Bitcoin. So I did write all of this by myself, and there's also one extra article which I think puts everything together, and it's by Grafton, who works at Trezor. And he explained how he took one of his friends through the journey and made him buy Bitcoin for the first time to purchase a Nintendo Switch for his son, and why it's a lot easier. And the point of this and the takeaway from his article is that we have built the tools that we wish we had when we first got into Bitcoin. And I think that's ultimately the mission of every Bitcoiner once they get very deep into this. They understand that they had roadblocks, and they see that, or maybe that they hope that the future generations are not gonna have to deal with that once again. We hope that there's some evolution from the entire process, and we're not gonna deal with that. So we build stuff that we think are going, or is going to help other people in the future. And this is my contribution. I think I explained some stuff fairly well. And the project is going to evolve in the next year because I'm going to very much present it at every conference. And where is it? So this is the roadmap, and I typed it like a shitcoiner because they like roadmaps. I'm going to promote it at more conferences, open source every page under the Creative Commons Zero license, which means that everyone can copy, everyone can edit, modify, distribute, print, sell. I don't care what you do with it, just attribute credit where it's due, and spread the word. And someone is already translating this into Portuguese for the Brazilian audience. And I also spoke with someone who's going to translate it in Spanish and French. And I think it might be a big deal by the end of the year. I'm trying to speculate here, I'm trying to pump my own bags, but I think that if you take these people who have very poor ideas about Bitcoin but know something about it, and you try to explain to them why it's not the way that they think it is, they might just give it more of a chance than they have by this point. And I also want to start Geyser fundraising campaigns to pay the translators. I want to list the magazine for sale in lots of places. So it's open source and it's free, that's the concept, but that's for the digital version of it. When you print it, it has some real world costs, and it's not cheap to print something like this. I think it's like 15 euro, which isn't really cheap because I wanted it on nice paper, which is glossy and feels nice when you touch it, because you're less likely to throw away something that feels nice as opposed to a leaflet or a newspaper. And what else am I gonna do? Of course, kickstart the next bull market, onboard the next 1 billion people to Bitcoin, because we are doing this event at the same time as the Miami people, and they're super bullish and they're promising that they're going to save the world, so why don't we do better than them? So knowledge is forever, but let's break the FUD.
Awesome. And it's clear that there's 70 copies of this print run. And
oh yeah.
If you buy one, then it's hand numbered, one of, two of, in sequence to the people who buy them autographed by Vlad. So
each copy is unique.
Each copy is unique. So I encourage you to get one, a signed copy. Cool. Thanks, Vlad.
Thank you.